All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nunn. Just move our guests around there. Jim was got pushed down to the corner. Hey, you got Stu here. You got Nunn. We're both here. Very southern studio, northern studio, and our boy. He's all official now. Got a blue check mark, so he goes by. We still call him Uncle Jimbo, but he is Jim Hanson for all the rest of you out there. Jim, welcome, brother.
Oh, good to be with you.
Yes, and Toby, welcome to you, my friend.
Who also has a blue check mark, but
oh, yes, you guys dropping bank, man. I have not went there to spend that $8 a month.
Oh, I didn't have to spend the money, man.
Oh,
if you're Googled enough, I don't know how Jimbo, like that's probably it. It's the spelling of Uncle Jimbo. This doesn't come up in Google the right way.
No, only in Pornhub. But anyways,
that's terrible.
I know. Sorry,
family show.
But anyways, yeah, my mom's watching. I know. Yeah, welcome both you guys. Have you here, Toby? The walking example of NAFTA or USMCA. I mean, the ultimate, Canada, U.S., Mexico trade agreements embodied inside of.
Big news there on that front. Just got renewed for another 10 years. No citizenship, but got renewed.
They're going to quit harassing you at the border or no?
Yeah. Well, no, they're still going to harass me, but I'm good for another 10 years.
I would harass you at the border. You look sketchy, man.
Well, I always enter with empty suitcases, so it definitely looks scandalous.
Usually, you leave with empty suitcases, come back with full ones. They get worried about.
Yeah,
but
I'm the opposite. I'm the opposite.
If you didn't have that head full of hair, you wouldn't look so sketchy. But you're keeping it covered.
Straight hippie.
Ooh. Yeah, it's that. But hey, yeah. So we got Jimbo on tonight. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. Obviously, like every time we do this show, there's no shortage of things. Before we get going, though, I just wanted to give a shout out. It's been a very tough week in our household and around my military circles. In about a 10-day time period, I was talking to my old buddy who retired as a State Sergeant Major and a couple old NCOs I used to serve with. And I asked him, I said, when did we get so old that people start dying around us? Because I don't feel like I'm that old. But, within 10-day period, lost a phenomenal staff sergeant, retired to, I think, and turned out to be complications from COPD, way too young for that. And then within 10 days after that, a very good friend who put a lot of people into my company. He was a squad leader, then turned into our recruiter dedicated to our company, recruited my son, recruited many, many soldiers. And he lost his life to a very aggressive battle with stomach cancer. And I'll just say probably a battle of stomach cancer and the VA, but I'll leave that for some other time. But two guys back to back within the same unit, went on with life, did their time, retired from the service, and then both just stricken down way too young. And unfortunately, next week I'll be going to back-to-back funerals in honor of our fellow soldiers. So I poured a little brown water tonight, and I'm toasting this to John and Chuck, and really praying and keeping your families in mind, because they're hurting right now, as are many of your fellow comrades and soldiers. So we've all lost guys, and I just want to take a moment to do that. I know not everyone drinks, that's fine, but take a moment. It means a lot. And, it doesn't get any better if you lose them in combat or lose them at home. It always still hurts, right? They're gone forever. But with that behind, I know what, some of them, they watch the show. They used to be fans. I mean, I know they jump on and stuff like that and harass me. So this show's to them, to John and Chuck. But with that, Jimbo, again, welcome, buddy. You're in the studio. You got the guitars. You got the whole backdrop that we see in all your videos, and including the Apocalypse Now poster. That's seriously vintage.
That is some cool shit.
Yeah. And I guess that's a rocket ship. I'm not going to ask what that silver thing is behind you, but it looks like a rocket ship. So
that's the Elon Musk Starship torch, man. You can light cigars with it. Literally, you click it on, and it's got the exhaust is this giant butane flame. It's awesome. It looks a little suspect, though. I guess I didn't think of that.
I want to know today. The two fingers up is your signature move, Is that hand modeled after you? Look at the balloons
Look
came
at the
again.
balloons go. I grab it. It's anytime, number one, it's cultural appropriation. I'll steal the peace sign for peace or strength. Number two, it's for Winston Churchill, V for victory. And then it's 2 for the Second Amendment. So it's a triple threat.
Man, you've got it all covered.
Right
you just need the okay next to it, because apparently I don't know what that means. But hey, no, it's been great. Toby, it's been a long time since you've been on. There's a lot of stuff going on, Jim. You want to give our listeners and viewers who maybe haven't met you before, I don't know how they haven't or know who you are, because you're everywhere, kind of a little bit who you are and what you do.
What do I do? I used to,
you don't have to go back to the airborne oboe days. You don't have to go that far.
Well, I think I kind of got to start with, I was Uncle Jimbo on Black 5. That's my one claim to fame that never, ever will end, was when mill blogs were invented and Black 5 ruled the earth. We bestrode the internets like colossuses. I was Uncle Jimbo, and that was a lot of fun. But these days, I live in D.C. I live in Arlington, right across the river from D.C. And we do a lot of what I would just call information warfare in support of U.S. strategic interests and sometimes in support of private clients. So in the information space where everybody's fighting these days, we help the good ideas and we hurt the bad ideas.
Well, that has kind of been something you've done for a long. This is not a new space for you. This is, I mean, you and Toby have been involved in a couple of adventures together. I mean, you've been around this space for a while of trying to counter the negative stereotypes, the bad impressions, the victimization of our military, you name it, right? Just trying to get the word out there and get honesty out there.
That's really why Matt started Black 5. That was the whole point. He was mad that the war was going on. He still had friends there. We all had friends there. Some of us were there. And, they were telling lies about it. And Matt started Black 5 to counter the lies. And we just took it to a level where at one point we were regularly in the early bird, the message that the Pentagon sends around to all of their senior leaders, because we had the facts to counter what the media was lying about when they were saying, troops in Iraq are killing civilians and we're losing the war and all that. And I think that made all of us mad, and the internet and online media gave us a way to fight back. And so we've just taken it now to, I think I would say it's a pretty high level. We helped with the Abraham Accords when Trump was in office last time. We helped fight against Iran and the Iran deal and all kinds of stuff. And we're still doing that. So I think it's important and I enjoy it.
Well, you brought up a good point. I want to kind of take it back a minute. All of us are bloggers. You guys have done a lot more. You've got movies and books and everything, and especially your books, Jimbo. But, I take back to those days in the mid 2000s when, we had media lying back then. There was mainstream media then and everything. But honestly, you look back, I mean, people looked at bloggers and whether military bloggers, I mean, I only know the military blogging atmosphere, but, they looked at us to keep the media in check. Like, we literally kept them honest. People paid attention to us. They listened, they read, they took what we said for granted. That's why, some of us have been into the White House. We've had people like Donald Rumsfeld come talk to us. We've had a lot of influence in the Pentagon and around DC. Man, I feel like that's lost, right? Somehow that transition from the one small group that kept the media honest to discounted as a whole bunch of angry people living at home in their mom's basements. And to me, bloggers just have or podcasters even at that, have no really reputation anymore that's positive.
I'll disagree with you a little bit. I think, podcasts have really replaced, and I think podcasts are the medium. When you look at mainstream media views versus podcast views, if you're looking at, podcasts really are like where the vast majority of people are getting their information, but not the military ones.
There was a point in time where there was a very pure group. You guys, it was a collection of people who were in it because we had skin in the game, or we had family in the game, or we had friends in the game. And I think there was a very organic nature to it, when it was first growing. And at that point, it was pure. You know what I mean? It was a real thing we did. And then when it started to have impact, I think it surprised us all. we were like, holy crap, the New York Times is now covering us, and, I mean, I remember it was my first or second time on TV related to that. And I was on CNN, and they were talking about how the Al-Qaeda in Iraq had been able to win kind of the information war against the US. And that had just happened after CNN had put a video that Al-Qaeda had posted on their website of them shooting a US troop. One of their people shot, a sniper shot a US soldier. Al-Qaeda put it on their website. CNN put it on television. And then Al-Qaeda put it back on their website with the CNN chyron. So CNN literally validated a piece of enemy propaganda, helped them, and then had the audacity to ask me on their television show, well, why do you think the enemy is winning the information war? And it's funny because if you watch the clip, I'll pull it up and post it later. You can see where I chuckle in the middle of the question, because I'm like thinking to myself, do I really ever want to be on CNN again? And the answer was, I don't care. And so I answered him and I said, because you do crap like that. You take an enemy piece of propaganda, put your logo on it, and then they put it back on their website. I mean, that's why they're winning, you scumbags. And you could watch the one guy host eyebrow goes all the way up the top of his head, and they never called back again. And so what? But that was when I actually realized that we were having an impact on them in a way that I don't think any of us expected.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And when you see things like, the stuff that Toby was involved in, and Northern Disclosure and all that, and the stuff that you were in. I mean, I know when I came back, I got pulled into, I started becoming on NPR, Sky News, like NPR a little bit, Sky News all the time. Like I would literally have to step out of work all the time because they're like, hey, can you be on in 30 minutes to talk about Somali pirates? I'm like, don't know shit about Somali pirates, but sure. And it was just, it was just nonstop. Of
damn skinnies and banana boats with AKs coming at my car.
You are not the captain.
Kill them all. But it was just, all these things. You're right. A lot of us ended up in different, segments and this and that and whatever. And it was like, okay, someone's paying attention. But then I don't know, tiresome of the wars, whatever. Oh, the media turned attention away from it, so people quit paying attention. But it definitely seemed to, fall off. And you know what? The one thing is people don't realize not every military blogger was strong, right, conservative, this or that, right? We know guys that were on all over the aisle, left and right. They were just telling the story of what was happening down right.
Well, talk about Alex Horton, Army of Dude.
That's what
he writes for the freaking Washington Post now.
Right.
I mean, it's disgraceful, and I have to kick him in the nads every once in a while, but. He went from being a very soldier, a soldier, dirty, nasty Spec 4 of doom, to now he is a legitimate journalist to the extent that's a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got Matt Gallagher kind of went that way.
Well, I mean, like when you look at some of those, like those famous guys early on that were part of that big group, Alex kind of came a little bit later, Army of Dude, but Kobe Bulzel, one of the very first guys, we were in the same unit together. Like, dude, that dude is, like Kerouac, dude. He's, the modern day Kerouac. And so like and I don't say that in a bad way. I thought he was a brilliant writer. We just don't share all the same opinions and, but no, it was even, there were both sides covered. Or not maybe even, but there were both sides covered. But I really think that the drop off didn't happen because people lost interest. I think the drop off happened because people took the opportunity to commercialize about, big companies like military.com, buying up, and, the aggregates of blogs and then making them commercial and then answering to their ad money versus answering to the truth. And I think there's a lot to be said about that.
Yeah. I mean, our boy Matt,
I'll be the one that says it all, but
I think our boy Matt was probably the grandfather of military blogs, but our boy JP was the stepfather, because JP was responsible for a lot of that. And, and then he got out and you know, then it was on. But no, I mean, it was, but I agree. Toby, I stand corrected. You're right. The podcast today, and thankfully to some really good podcasters, you know, comedic ones and stuff like that. There are someone that are truly respected, you know, whether it be Joe Rogan or Theo Vaughn or any number of them that are out there. Nick Freitas, you guys know Nick or not, out of Virginia, but I mean, there's out there that put videos and put stuff out, and people do pay attention. But it's just it definitely, the blogging piece is just falling off, probably because video is easier to do, right? I haven't written in a long time, but I do this show, right? It's easier just to talk and do
flapping your gums is easier than actually putting together coherent sentences. But
well, you could use
AI. I think there's an interesting dynamic now, though, since Elon bought Twitter and turned it into X. I think now there is a big difference. It's kind of like when it's a massive micro blogging platform, which is what we had before. So he's turning it into, now you're going to have a homepage. You're going to have a way to be your own little micro journalist. And to the extent people like that, they will flock to it. And I mean, I get paid for what I do on X, not a lot, but it's not nothing. You know, I mean, it's a reasonable amount of money. And I think the idea that you can still get to, like, you can still speak truth to power. That was what blew me away, is when we could, by, you know, quoting or by getting in the comments of the New York Times or CNN or something like that, we could affect their story if we called out their journalists by name, because journalists are vain, narcissistic, thin-skinned losers, right? So what we would do at Black 5 is we would say, hey, that's BS. You know, what you just wrote is garbage. Here's why: because my friend who was there told me this and sent me these pictures. And so we would call them out and they would answer back then. And so we started being able to influence what they were doing by being ombudsmen, being, you know, truth tellers to their lies. And now X is a place where you still have access to the big people, you know, and if you have to have enough clout to get to them, you know, they're not going to see you unless you have enough followers or whatnot, or you can get somebody big to back your play. But we hassle the top people on the other side constantly and force them to react to our narrative, not just push their own. And that's kind of an outgrowth of what we did. It's taking it to a different level. And I think that may become the dominant media platform in our country, because it's free speech and because we can get there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I remember but you know, a number of years after I got back and Facebook was really taking off, I was sitting there going, wow, man, if this would have been there where I could have, because I started blogging like many did, just to write and keep my family updated about what was going on when I was deployed. If Facebook had been there, I probably would have just done that, never messed with getting a website and a domain and learning WordPress and doing all that mess. I would have just wrote on that. Right. And then Facebook became this super censored area. And like I say, because of Elon, X is now open. Now you have, you know, before him, right, you got 140 characters. Now you have spaces, right? You have this interview with Donald Trump that happened that pretty much
1 billion impressions. Billion impressions.
That's wild.
In 24 hours.
Is wild.
I mean, what are you going to do? That is going to change everything. And now the media knows that they can put out what they want to their audience, which is declining. You know, you can watch their audience go decline like that, and then online media is going like that. So they've already crossed, and online media do the two biggest podcasts, Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson now.
Yeah, Tucker.
You know, those two completely dominate the number of people you can get your ideas in front of. And that is going to continue as this younger generation. You mentioned someone, Theo Vaughn, who interviewed Trump. And I don't know if you saw the interview with Trump, but that was a really touching interview because they talked about addiction. You know, they talked about family issues and other things. And it was a way for Trump to humanize himself that you can't do with a little lapdog attack poodle media, you know, trying to just tear you down. You need someone who really wants to have a conversation. And that was the same thing with Elon. It wasn't an interview. It was a conversation between a couple of billionaires talking about ruling the planet and whatever else they wanted. And it was entertaining. And I think that's a way to change how people get their information instead of having it force fed to them by liars of the left.
Well, the funny thing is, like, Trump and Theo Vaughn, like, that's a really two people that you would not expect talking to each other.
Right.
And, you know, they got on famously, and the like you said about Elon and him and Trump speaking together, you know, you got these two guys, very wealthy, both can, influence and manage countries. So like the Theon Vaughn thing, the reason everyone loves Theon Vaughn is, one, because his brain works in no way that you can compute. And two, like, he's just a poor white dude from like Mississippi or Alabama. He grew up and he's a self-made guy, and he's worked hard, by sharing his perspective. But he's a real guy. He's a genuine guy. And he's coming out of that class of guys that kind of followed Rogan, for lack of, because they all kind of did. His influence is there, but it's that long form conversation where, we can do this, where we can talk for an hour or whatever and actually dive into something. You're not getting these quick little hit bullet point or, gotcha bullet point. It's like, no, we're actually having dialogue and, pro, con, I send, you receive, you provide feedback, and it's actual communication. And I think that's what is so scary. So it's because it's so uncontrolled.
Right.
And, Elon's interview with Don Lemon was beautiful. It was beautiful because it was an absolute takedown of the media, and just showing how indoctrinated they are. I don't know why Don Lemon is still holding the views that he holds. He doesn't work for CNN. He's not beholden to anybody. I guess that's just who he is. And you went to your new boss and you tried that whole gotcha thing, and gotcha fired is what it got you.
He found out
within hours.
I gotta ask, is his name pronounced Limon, or has you just been in Mexico too long? That's just the way you call it.
Oh, I don't.
That's
care
the
how
hip
it's
way to
pronounced.
talk about him.
It's
like
I don't care
Target.
how it's pronounced.
Target.
Yeah, I say it because there's no respect to it. If I was going to say his name properly, it's because I respect it. I got zero respect for a guy that, even Tucker Carlson, who I was really impressed by this. I saw Tucker Carlson talking about him being fired, and Tucker Carlson called him that day, to help him. And two guys that you would not expect, conversing on the day they got fired, but Tucker Carlson was hey, dude, you got fired. Maybe you should think about why. It's like a divorce. It takes two to tango. It's not one-sided. You probably did something too. So take accountability in that and move for it, and then go get paid. Go. But
they took that a little bit too far, I think, with Elon. Didn't he ask for a rocket ride to Mars? I want to ride to Mars. I want $5 million. I want a cyber truck with a Gatling gun on it. Shut up, man. You're lucky I gave you a shot, is what Elon told him. That was beautiful. But that's also.
Well, I don't know if you guys saw it the other day, but he went and did a man on the street interview. So he's resorted down to the old Jesse Waters time, and he's walking around New Jersey boardwalk, Don Lemon. And he's asking people about who they're going to vote for. And it was mostly African Americans, mostly people in minorities. Yeah, every one of
Trump.
Trump. The best was the guy. He said, the guy said, he goes, why are you voting for Trump? He goes, because I got more money now. I had more money in my bank account. I did this. I did better. It's in my account. And he's like, well, that's not what the research say. And the guy's like, what? Dude, it's my bank account. You don't have research in my bank account. Everyone shot him down, and he aired it. I would have been, this goes on the cutting room floor. Nope, he aired it, and every one of them just called him out. But that was just the other day.
Well, and it's democratized again in the same way it did in the beginning when blogs came out. Anybody could have a blog. Blogger was free. The platform was free. You put your stuff out there. If people liked it, they came back. You build an audience, all of that kind of stuff. The same thing is happening right now, but it's also an industry. And I mean, it is a massive industry. If you look at the revenue, Twitter or X, whatever. I try to call it X. That was a mistake. He screwed that up. But it's his whole brand. He's got X companies. But it's a place now where if you want to go ahead either on YouTube or on X or someplace else and put the effort in, put the time in, build an audience, and you've got something to say that people want to hear, you can turn that into a business, a job, and an influence for your ideas. And that's brilliant in my book.
Yeah. I think just to circle back quickly and to caveat, we're bootstrap on what you just said, Jimbo. the blogs, they allow real-time fact checking, right? Because people can get into the comments and it's a direct interaction with the author. So if you, which you never have done, but I've written some suspect things, and like, and like I've had people hop in the comments and be like, Toby, maybe you should like look at this, or I don't think you were completely accurate on that. And that, I think that's why, because fact checkers are the gatekeepers, right? So like to the new Gestapo of like the current age are the people that call themselves fact checkers. But like with blogs, you can't control the fact checkers. They're everybody, and it's whoever wants to chime in. And like that's the funny thing. Like old Don Lemon got fact checked on the his little beach vacation there where he's doing Man About Town, because like he's like let me cherry pick people. Like I'm only going to talk to like African Americans. I'm only going to talk to this age demographic, because I think like I'm going to like be able to pump myself up, and I'm going to get like that confirmation bias that I'm looking for. And what happened? He got like real time fact checked by like what? Like
reality bites sometimes.
Like,
and that's that's one thing Elon did in the way they set up the algorithm for X. They set it up so that replies are prioritized. So if you reply, if like Kamala Harris's account puts something out and you reply to it, that's more highly incented for people to see than if you just put out the same idea by yourself, because you're replying to a major account. And you're doing what Toby just said. You're checking them or your company. You may be telling them, yeah, that's great. That's brilliant. You may be telling them you're totally wrong. Here's why. You may be calling them names. Whatever it is, you get a chance to go ahead and in real time do that. And that's where now the media no longer controls the full narrative. They still control a large amount of it because they're still the baby boomer generation. They still get their information from cable news. Okay, that's great. But that's not lasting much longer. Gen X, which is, I think, all of us, that we don't get our information mainly from cable news. We get it from podcasts. We get it from online. We may get it from still radio people we like, and occasionally we'll catch up on TV. When I go on Fox for a hit, I know I'm speaking to my mom, my dad, Troy's mom, and some other people who watch that, but I'm looking to get a clip. Right. I've got something I want to say that I want to clip out of that. And then I want to promote that on X. And that's what I'm looking for. So it just transfers right directly across. And Fox is providing me the credibility and the nice studio look, right, for the 45-second clip of what I want to promote to the larger audience I can reach online.
And I would say like, and they understand that, right? And that's why, they allow that. Because, like they all want you to be their evangelist, or that message's evangelist. And I think that's so crucial. And I think that's why it's important. Like I would skip ahead a little bit. Your lovely wife, like put out this really cool video the other day talking about stolen valor with the new vice. Is it official? Does he get like declared? Is that today that he got declared as the?
Yeah, he's the nominee.
Yeah, he's the nominee.
And like that, it's neat because she can do that, and now like it's all over the place, and like some facts and some truth and some perspective can get put out there, because I think like this is it's a story that's definitely being like stifled, and it's a story that's being very dismissed. It's not important. But, they're like, well, if it was really important, it would come up in his like, gubernatorial campaigns. Well, like no one like brought it up back then to the extent that they're bringing it up now, because they knew that he was going to be in the chain of command. He was going to be their boss.
Right.
Like in fact, you're going to suffer direct UCMJ if you say anything about him. Like,
yeah. The only people that brought that stuff up were guys that were in his unit that were no longer in there, right?
Yeah,
so that's why,
that's why it's so dismissive. Like, oh, well, that's just a pissed off private. That's that sham shield. That like that little airman. Like their voice isn't valuable. But now it's like, oh, like you threw your hat in here. Well, I was your battalion commander, and I was happy to watch you go. Let me introduce you to But you know, he did it with such class, because
Yeah.
he was like, let me introduce you to the real hero. And then that picture of them like escorting like their fallen to the ramp.
Yeah, the ramp
Dude,
ceremony.
that was a heartbreaking picture. But it was such a poignant picture, like, hey dude, like you didn't have what it took as a man to walk with your dead. You didn't have what it took to walk with your dead. And now you're asking the country to stand and receive him at the other end of the ramp. You didn't have what it took then. Why do you think you have what it takes now? So such a poignant picture, but so classy. But that's like the nuance and the perspective that we have that we wouldn't be able to share with the world, you know, before, because it would get silenced. And I believe absolutely it's that whole storyline is being dismissed. You know, they're like,
well,
oh, well,
here's the
really
thing. I'll tell you one thing. It's not going away, and it's gaining traction. And that literally, that was like an old school blogger pile-on, because that came out of the veteran community, you know. And I know most of the people, Jesse Kelly and Kurt Schlichter and a bunch of people I know and hang around with. We basically talked about on the back channel, said, no, we are going to take this down. And so we kept piling on and kept piling on. And then finally, I asked Sam if, you know, because she doesn't normally, she's not one of those people like me who will flap his gums anytime someone wants to talk. And she wanted to come out and say what she said. And I appreciate you guys helping push that around. It got a ton of views. And it was one of those things. She was able to hurt him as a female combat vet who was a bigger badass than he ever could have been, calling him out on the facts. And now that's all around.
She didn't follow the typical white male, you know, infantry kind of whatever. I mean, yeah, officer, female, combat vet, airborne paratrooper, and you know, not something like, say, she's not one we see all the time. Right? I don't even know if she's ever even done a video before, but that one got my attention, and it was like, okay, she felt so strongly about it. She's getting in front of the camera, and she knocked it out of the park. I mean,
and the vice president, J.D. Vance, took it up. When he took it up, it got up to him, and we sent stuff to them. So we had access to the people who run, you know, for the vice president, his social media, for Trump, his social media. We know those people. And we sent them a lot of information to start with, and they knew it was a good thing. And Vance took it up early because he had the credibility to do it. He answered the call. And, you know, and I think when we're able, as the Army of Davids, which Glenn Reynolds, Instapundit, you know, who was the king of blogging, when he wrote a book called Army of Davids, it was the idea that enough of us get together with our slingshots and we can take down anybody, because it becomes self-reinforcing. And I think we're at that point again where you can join forces with like-minded people, you know, on these social media platforms, and create an online wave that can't be ignored by the major media. Now, they'll try and lie about it to do what they can, but if we keep at it, and we're going to, this will cost them votes every time, because once you attach stolen valor to someone, that does not come off. And it should not. You know, if you lie about your military service and go into war, you deserve to lose whatever you have. And I think Waltz is going to be the biggest cause, aside from Kamala being a commie, for those two to lose the election.
Well, I mean, I hope so. You know, mainly just because, like, how we've had leaders in the past that didn't like the military. You know, like every couple of cycles, it seems to happen. All of us have served under said presidents that, you know, like, did not support us the way others have, right? And I remember the cultural shift from, you know, Clinton to Bush, and then Bush to Obama, like, just huge, dramatic night and day changes, right?
Yep.
I don't know if I've ever felt the way I feel. Like, you cannot say that you are this. Like, you are saying that you are this and that you should represent this, but yet it's all propagated on a lie. Like, it's not true. It's factually untrue. And you're being called out on it. And people are like, well, it's not that big of a deal. Like, you're asking someone to do this job, you know, and like, no disrespect, Sarah Palin, I felt the same way about you. Like, I felt the same way about Sarah Palin, because she got asked to do a job and she quit. Like, you know, like, that's not a leader. And you can't throw the C, like, you know, like there's a reason there's a wreath around a star. And because that's the difference between leadership and staff. And he didn't earn either, to keep it real, make sure like I'm not, you know, helping his situation. But like you can't call yourself a leader if like the one time you were asked to be a leader, you were like, ninja dust. And
yeah, he wanted to take care of himself.
You know,
and I think the idea, and Sam said it in her video, the idea that guy who deserted his unit for his own glory, he wanted to chase his own glory. And he knew before he put his retirement papers in, long before the fall before, he knew they had gotten a notification of sourcing, which is National Guard speak for you guys are going. And then he put his paperwork in once he found that out. That guy then lying about his rank and convincing and misleading everyone that he had been to war for 20 years. The idea that that guy would then be a heartbeat away from commander-in-chief is sickening. And I think there's enough people
he made a coin
who get that.
He made a
freaking coin. Come on, man.
Who does
that? I mean, even last night at the convention when they introduced him, they had to change their helicopter because they said served up to the position of command sergeant major. So it changed last night. They knew they had to. I guarantee you, had this not happened, had the veteran community not come together, they would have been retired command sergeant. But they said they're banking on the fact that the layman doesn't understand the nuance of that.
Right.
So there's things he did, right? So you got the, you know, projected himself, acted like he was still a command sergeant major after he was retired and demoted, right? I carried a weapon in war, which he never did. He was in support of Operation Enduring Freedom, the same thing that I and many of my soldiers did in the early years when we were in New York City guarding rail stations. It was in support of Enduring Freedom, but we were not in Afghanistan yet, right? He left his soldiers, and he there's a fourth one, I can't remember what it is, but and we in the community, I think collectively in the military community, are most upset about the leaving of the soldiers. Yeah. And I would say it's safe to say that's probably the one thing that the left, or even the civilians or left, people that don't have a connection to the military are probably the least worried about, because they're like, well, he served 24 years, and he did. Something that J.D. Vance said, right? Served 24 years. Now, the only argument he's had is he's been coming out stumping, saying, I'm proud of my military service, which everyone's going, yeah, no one's had a question about that, right? You did 24 years. Good on you, right? But that's all he can say, right? Because he's not addressing the carrying a weapon in war. And yeah, okay, that's not really a stolen valor. Maybe say he just made that projection. But the calling yourself a command sergeant major, calling yourself and having a coin made and allowing it to be said for so many years is really, some people are splitting hairs going, well, it's not valor, it was rank or whatever. He is impersonating that he did something.
He's a poser. He's a poser, which is the aside from, for all of us, we know that deserting your troops was the worst of it, but being a poser for all those years is just as bad. And I'll go ahead. I will denigrate his service, because I'll tell you right now, anyone who served 24 years and the highest award they received was an ARCOM was not well liked or respected. And his service was not respected. He got an ARCOM for retiring. Come on, man. I got an ARCOM for not getting a DUI. You
got a binder. You have a binder.
No, he was a dung
that's
beetle.
What I'm saying. Like, I think I got an ARCOM for being supernumerary like 5 times in a row or something.
Right. It's a giveaway. If your retirement award is an ARCOM, you are a piece of crap.
Yeah, it was. Like I say, the leaving the soldiers is the biggest thing, and the lying of 2 months before and all that stuff. My own son, went after I did. He was an E5. And I asked him, I said, son, how far before you went, did you know? I knew well before him, I was higher rank and all that stuff. And I knew well before he got but he's like, oh, I was down guarding the Arizona border. We found out like 9 months before he went. I'm like, yeah, you're just an E5 medic, dude. You weren't a command sergeant major. You think that dude only found out 2 months prior before the DOD put out a press release? I'm like, no, that guy knew we knew the NOS comes down a year plus.
Yep.
I went in 2000. I deployed 2006. I knew my brigade was deploying in 2008 before I ever went. Right. That was 2 years later. It was just BS. And that lying, may not hold true for a lot of the civilian community, but I think it will get some of the civilian community's attention when they start seeing a lot of veterans that they know of or respect in their families and around the world really have an issue with it. I think it's going to give some people some pause and think maybe this is bigger than I think it is.
I had some people who are moderate.
Well, I mean, like you just brought.
Go ahead, Toby.
Oh, Toby stepped. He stopped. Oh, he froze.
Jimbo just hit it, man. That's a whole new angle. Like we should like come at is the awards, right? You served 24 years in your ETS award. Your retirement was fucking ARCOM. Like,
dude,
shit. Like,
I got an ARCOM as a Spec 4 coming back from Germany. Yeah, no, that's horrible.
Yeah,
one thing.
Yeah,
to what Troy was saying. The people who I know who are more moderate, whether they're center left or center right, some of them have said now that veterans I trust have come out and said this is BS. He is garbage. They're changing their minds. The idea that because like you said, it's complicated. He served 24 years. He had the right to retire. He didn't violate any rules. He violated the honor that a leader of a unit has and the esprit de corps and everything it takes to build a unit. When you have promised to be the leader of that unit and the balloon goes up and you're like, I think I got to be a congressman. No, that's not how we believe it should be, but that's hard to convey. If you can get to the idea that he lied about his service, then you can talk to normal people. You go, he did what? He lied about what his rank was, and he lied about whether or not he went to war. He lied saying he did go to war. Those are things normal people can understand. And I think when veterans they trust, members of their family, friends, whatever, are telling them that, and as long as we continue to do that, we peel votes off them constantly. And we need to.
No, it's of course, someone's going to turn around and say, like, hey, Toby, you feel no, like I feel this way because, and I got to be honest with you, if JD Vance did this stuff, I couldn't get behind him on a ticket if he had done this. It's not a partisan thing. It's a leadership thing. And you're asking to be like, Sam so eloquently said, a heartbeat away from the commander in chief. Like to whom much is given, much is expected. And that's not from Spider-Man. Like, no, it's to whom much is given, much is expected.
I mean, they were trying to sell him as this folksy, he's a hunter, he likes the Second Amendment, all that kind of stuff, and he's down to earth. They're making camo hats. They're doing that to counter the cackling, freaking disconnected socialist communists out of California. That's a horror. They're trying to win this down the middle of the earth flyover state voter by, hey, we got camo hats out now. We got country stars on the stage. And he's just they were calling him folksy for like the first week. It's all a point. It's all in that. And you know what? I'll give, we talked about your wife. We'll give my wife full credit here. Right when this all came out, she looked at me. She said, he's a hunter. Let me see his mounts. She goes, if I don't see stuff on his wall, he ain't. I'm like,
where's the dead girl? Well, he's a commie too. That's the thing. All right. Kamala's at least upfront and honest about the fact that she's a commie. He literally, and it's in a video I made, he said, one man's socialism is another man's neighborliness. That's a quote from Tim Walz. And he's been to China 30 times. He came back from China, and there's quotes of him teaching his kids that communism is not all bad. It's about sharing. People there care about each other, so they share their resources. He is a socialist of some flavor. And, the idea that, because he's from Minnesota, then he's obviously automatically folksy. No, he's a freaking weirdo. All right. He is a weirdo who acts like a theater kid. And I think he is the most fake person who I've seen in politics in as long as I can remember. So I think hammering him is going to be productive because they're stuck with him now.
Well, it's funny that when she picked him and all this started coming out, people were like asking me, like, did they not vet him? How do they know? Like, what did they not check this out? And also, I'm like one, who do you think she has in her circle? Like they were having a rush, and they probably didn't know to ask those kind of questions. I doubt she has any military advisors in her inner circle advising on her campaign. They were like, hey, he's from here, he's done this, he let Minnesota burn, gave back a police station on fire to Black Lives Matter. That's our guy. And I loved it when it happened and President Trump came out and said she couldn't have picked a better guy. She picked someone more left than he is, which we didn't think was possible. I know there was a guy out there in command of a state like that, but there definitely was. And short of Gavin Newsom, I think he's probably right there with him, if not far behind.
Yeah, and he's weirder. The thing about Newsom, I'm glad dude, he was smart enough to stay out of this, because this is a poo flinging contest. But he actually is a good politician. Waltz is not. Waltz is a weirdo, and he's got so many bad positions. He's just not as good at looking and acting normal as Newsom is. So we're fortunate that we've got Kamala, who is incapable of stringing together two coherent sentences, and Waltz, who every time he opens his mouth is lying about something and telling us that when he does tell the truth, that he's actually in favor of socialist policies. They're a gift. We just got to get him in front of more people. And I think it's, they're going to have to face the media, and they're going to have to face debates, and that's not going to go well for him. Trump is going to myrtleize him, and JD Vance is going to destroy Tim Walz.
Well, JD's been known as a very articulate and great debater, and he's known as someone that can hold his own in debates and talk to me. And you've seen it. I mean, I've been watching him day after day. He was in Milwaukee, and then he was in Georgia, and today, and he's he knows how to talk. He doesn't need teleprompters. Nope. He doesn't need cue cards. And he will. Yeah, he is probably. I would say probably a much better debater than even Trump is, and Trump has crushed everyone that he's win against. I think JD Vance is more on point, and it could be because of his youth and that kind of stuff. But he stays on point. He's articulate. He talks to what he needs to talk to, without getting really emotional. I mean, he's going to be brutal to any of them. They could put him against Kamala, and he'd destroy her too.
Oh yeah, it's been funny watching them try to make him weird too. The idea that they were going to go with weird. JD Vance might be the most normal person in politics for a very long time. He is boring, but he's your kid's soccer coach, is what he comes across at. He's the guy you expect to see, at the neighborhood meeting. He's every normal dude in suburbia. He just happens to be pretty smart too. He made it through Yale Law School, and that's not something that rednecks.
He's the epitome of the American dream and story, coming from poverty and poor, and just like Ben Carson is, right? Coming from that, in a broken family, hard upbringing, got himself into Ohio State, then went on to law school, Yale, has done this thing, joined the Marines, deployed. I mean, this dude has, if you were going to check blocks, right, he's checked every block from nothing to something in the American dream that I think many people hope that they have those same blocks to check one day, and most don't. Toby, you have something?
No, it's like the debate thing's going to be, I don't believe, the debates are effective anymore, because, where do they do it? Who do they do it with? And that's all controlled, and we're muting mics, and we're giving this candidate the answers in advance, or the questions in advance, so they're prepared. I don't believe in any way that the debates are realistically fair. I don't believe in any way that they move the needle in any way.
And Trump Biden went
Biden out, yeah. Trump put Biden in a nursing home,
but Trump didn't look good either. That definitely
he looked better. I think the muted mics
he looked better than Biden, but that's not saying much, because that bar was really low. But again, Trump's a wonderful debater. That's how he took down 15 candidates in the past, and he went against some talent. Let's talk about the talent he went against. He didn't go against people that weren't gifted, and he went against Ted Cruz.
Yeah,
I mean, Ted Cruz is possibly one of the best debaters that we'll ever witness in our generation. That dude's phenomenal. And then the teams guys like him have behind him. Trump went toe to toe with the best in the business and did all right. And like you can make fun of the antics, the little hand things, and little like stuff like that. That's antics, but it was a strategy that worked. But in the end, like head to head, when he went against Hillary, like he's made for that thing, so they have to like change it and they have to weight it, and that's why like how many Trump Biden debates were there?
Yeah, well, and how many Trump Harris? There's only
there weren't enough.
One. It looks like there's only going to be one unless they reschedule a second one with Fox. And the advantage Trump has, though, is Harris has been running. They did a very smart thing. They're like, we're going to run on emotion and get our team excited. We're going to run on joy. And the funny thing about it is joy for no reason is delusion. If you have no reason to be joyful, and yet that's what you're doing, we're vibing on joy, but there's no reason to be happy because the country's in the crapper and you're the one who did it. She hasn't had to answer for that yet. And there are so many things she has said and done and is responsible for as Biden's vice president that Trump is just going to drop on the table. And I think that debate is going to get a ton of viewership. We'll see how many minds it changes. But I think there are a lot of people who are waiting now. There's people who are Trump and not Trump is where America's been for the past 6 years. So the not Trump people we don't care who it is. Democrat with a pulse, throw her in there. Okay. Then the pro-Trump people were, as long as it's Trump, I'm in. Those camps were done. But there's a large segment of people who make their minds up late in the campaign. And I think they'll see the Trump-Harris debate and they'll see Vance-Waltz and the policies that those guys have, which are so fundamentally un-American and damaging to this country, will actually be tied to them for the first time in a way the media hasn't allowed to happen yet. And I think that's going to kill them.
Yeah, I mean, like I watched this thing with Kamala the other day where she's like, like I can't wait to be president so I can get in there and start doing these things that need to get done, getting this back on track, getting this fit. It's like, I'm sorry, like you're the one that did it,
right?
And you've had a couple of years.
It's not like Biden's stopping you,
to do it, like.
And America sees that, right? These a lot of these man on the street interviews and things that are happening, not just Lamone's, but all the rest of them. It's people going. I mean, they did one the other day in Chicago, all inner city, South Side, right? All African Americans, and they're all like, "No, we're voting for Trump. We're all Trump. I was richer under Trump, and my life was better." I mean, it is. I mean, there was in 2016. We all knew there was this whisper. There were people that didn't want to say it. There were people that maybe held their nose and they stayed quiet and they voted for Trump. And there were a lot of people on that left that just stayed home because they couldn't stand Hillary and wouldn't do it. They were couch potatoes. My prediction has been for the last couple months, and I still say it is, that silent wave is going to come even bigger. And I think once she starts opening her mouth and the cackle starts and the Venn diagrams start crossing over and her eyes get crossed and she starts talking like we've always seen her talk for over 3.5 years, that people are going to just stay home. The excitement's going to wear out. This week's going to end, and they're going to be like, I can't vote for that. Just like they said that about Hillary. They're going to stay home, or they're going to silently go in and go, I'm not going to tell my family or friends, but man, I did like having $1.85 gas and 99 cents a pound beef, and they're going to go Trump.
People got to buy groceries and gas. You can't get away from that. I love they had a couple good, aside from the people getting interviewed and saying they'll vote for Trump, inside the DNC, they had people going around asking the delegates and people attending, what's your favorite Kamala Harris policy? And nobody could come up with a single thing. They're like, well, she's a girl. She'll be the first woman president. That's not a policy. Well, I like her because she'll make things better or make things nicer. No, those aren't policies either. Nobody could come up with an actual policy of Kamala's because she didn't do anything. The only job she had was border czar, and we know how that went. So I think she's in deep.
Like you said, though, the ultra right going to vote right. It doesn't matter. Left is going to vote. I mean, we had politicians. What was it last year?
For the middle
that had that there were politicians like local down ballot elections. I think in Missouri, a couple places last year, that the candidate was dead and they still won because people just went, I'm a Democrat. They voted for him. The guy is in the ground and he still won. There are people that are going to vote that way. I think what we normally saw in 3 elections ago they were used to say the independents were about 13%, and that's what swung and made the decision. That's why we have swing states. I think that is much wider because people have veered more to the center and like, I don't like either side or I don't like whatever. I think we're looking at an independent of around 18 to 21% right now is my guess. And that is what's going to make this election. The left's going left. MSNBC and One America News are voting their two sides. It's the people down the middle that watch podcasts, that look at foreign media, that actually take some time and study the people. And I think that's a much wider gap than it was 12 years, 16 years ago.
I think you're right.
Yeah, well, here U.S.-Mexican relations were probably better during the time of the Alamo. It's like really interesting to be here and hear their perspective. And, so Mexico, voted in their first female president in the history of the country, takes power in about a month's time. 1 October is the official changeover. And Claudia. And, like everyone's like pumped up for her, but she's super left. And, everyone's like, oh, it's going to be so awesome. These two women are going to be able to these two women are going to be able to talk to each other and they're going to solve the world's problems. It's like the problems that Mexico and the United States have right now. And the reason that like I said, the relations were probably better during the time of the Alamo is because the policies that one side have done. Like you can't look forward to 4 more years of that,
right.
But again, it's just like, well, in the words of Elizabeth Warren, there's a special place in hell for people that don't vote for women.
There you go. Hey, we only got a couple minutes left, but I want to get. We do have one question from a good old Sergeant Major in the chat, and I'm going to ask this of Jimbo. What do you think of the rumor that RFK Jr. is going to drop out tomorrow and join or endorse Trump? And what do you think that impact's going to be?
Yeah, I don't think it's a rumor. It's pretty well confirmed. I think he'll actually be in Arizona at a Trump rally. I think they'll be on stage together. And I think it's a huge boost for Trump. He needed something like that. I think RFK Jr. is a kook.
He should have been VP.
Personally. But I think he will be a major. He was going to take people from Trump. And now he's giving him back. And he's saying, I'm walking away from the party of my father and my uncle, who were just Democrat icons because that party no longer represents me.
Yeah, Kennedy and Democrat are one and the same. Like that was the empire, right? That was truly, So
which will make everyone ask why did Trump go from Democrat to Republican? Oh, same reason that Kennedy did. More and more. Wow.
And the mainstream will discount it. Yeah, the mainstream will discount it. They'll say he's a kook, he's this and all that stuff. But there's, like you said, there are people that are following him that's going to make an impact.
They'll go the right way. I'll tell you a quick story. My grandfather was the Democrat state chairman for Nebraska when Kennedy was running for office. And he drove Jackie and John Kennedy around the state of Nebraska for 3 days in his own car, explaining farm policy to him. All right. Went to the inauguration, all of that, right? My just solid old school conservative Democrat. My father was chairman of the Wisconsin Outagamie County GOP because the Democrats went left and my dad was left behind. It's the old thing. They moved so far left that the people who were conservative Democrats like John Kennedy would now be moderate Republicans.
Yeah.
And that's where we are is RFK is going to he's going to provide air cover for some of those people to go ahead and vote for Trump.
Yeah, he definitely would be stealing votes if he stays.
There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a pitch for RFK to run the CIA. Boy, that would be something.
I might let him look through the files. I don't think he's got the chops to run it. Right. Yeah, declassify it all.
Well, there we go, guys. We're at an hour now. We kind of hit the limit. I want to thank you, guys. I want to thank you, Jimbo, so much for going. Toby, great to have you back on, brother. It's been too long. Jimbo, same thing. It's been a while since we had you on. This was a great conversation. I mean, we covered a lot, which I knew we would. I knew an hour wouldn't be enough. But
thanks for having me.
Thank you, man.
It's always fun to hang out with you guys.
Absolutely. And any final words, anything you want to let our listener viewers know, Jim?
Fight hard. I mean, this is it. If they win, they will pack the Supreme Court. They will declare hate speech not covered by the First Amendment, and they will declare all semi-automatic weapons to be banned, and they'll come get them. So if you don't want that to happen, you got to talk to more people, talk smart, be reasonable, push our cause, remind them that things were better under Trump, because they were.
That's it.
And let's win this.
Hey, right. And be sure to pick up Jimbo's book, Civil War, The War Fired Without a Shot. I know I butchered that, but Jimbo, where do you get your book? Where do you get your
Amazon?
book?
If you go Amazon, look up my name, you can find any of this.
A lot of good books out there. That's right. That's right. But definitely awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys so much, Toby. Great to see you again, brother. And everyone else, thanks for tuning in, watching, and listening tonight. Be sure to tune in next week. Peace out, brother. And everybody, you have a great night. Thank you guys so much.